Houston. Houston, we have a problem. DJ Apollo has landed. I repeat, DJ Apollo has landed.
And thank you for clicking on this recording. You are listening to the podcast called Tales of Music and Film. And we got a very fun one in store for today. I know I always say that because my most important rule, whenever I'm recording these episodes, is to just have fun, just lay back and just let it, and just ride the wave, let it run its course. I don't put too much thought, into it when I record these episodes. Just the important thing is, I just want you guys to enjoy yourselves, and I hope you learn something cool about whatever the subject is that I am reviewing. Now, we're going to be talking about a movie today that I've been meaning to talk about for a while now, just never got around to doing it yet. But first off, I just want to say my name is Christian Taylor. You all know me. I'm the host of this podcast, and this is going to be really fun. This is a movie that I've really been dying to talk about for a while now, and it has bugged me that I never talked about it yet. I am, of course, talking about the original Alien film from 1979. And I was not originally going to talk about this, but recently it's been brought to my attention that this movie is currently celebrating its 45th anniversary. And I knew that I need to talk about this now while the anniversary is in effect, because, I think it's important to get this out while the hype for this movie is going around. And it deserves all the hype and attention that it's getting, because I consider this movie to be one of the greatest sci-fi horror films ever made. And I had the most amazing honor of seeing this movie on the big screen this past Tuesday. I drove from my hometown all the way down to Mattoon to go see this movie at the AMC theater. And it was a very strange experience for me because I was the only one inside that particular theater room. No one else had showed up to see the movie, and it was just me. So it was a very surreal experience, to say the least. But man, getting to see this movie on the big screen, it was an entirely different movie altogether. And it was a whole other experience. I've praised this movie so many times, and rightfully so. Now, when it comes to the Alien franchise, I've noticed that there seems to be about a 50-50. You have one half of the fan base who likes the first film for its suspense, horror, and very drawn out sequences, and then you have the sequel, Aliens, which is the other 50% of the fan base that like it because it has a mixture of action, maybe a slight bit of adventure, and suspense, maybe a hint of romance, and stuff like that. Now, I've always preferred Aliens because I'm just an action sci-fi, fan. I love action films to death. I love them. I don't care how cheesy they are. If they're entertaining, I will watch it. It don't take much to please me. And I consider Aliens to be one of the greatest action films and sci-fi films ever made. And I preferred that movie because I just think it had a better direction. I think it had a better story, better characters, and just a better message and theme with its story overall. But I love Alien just as much. Aliens is a very important film to me. Now, I have covered Alien 3 and Aliens on the podcast, so it always felt like that there was a piece missing. So I'm glad that I'm finally getting the opportunity to get this film out of the way and complete the trilogy, if you will. But I do not consider Alien to be a trilogy or even a franchise for that matter. As far as I'm concerned, the only things that are canon are the first two films and the video game Alien Isolation, which I'll talk about more towards the end. But the first two films, Alien and Aliens, and the video game Alien Isolation, those are the only three things that are canon, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I hated Prometheus, I hated Alien Covenant, I hated Alien 3. I consider it to be one of the worst sequels ever made. If you guys want to hear my true thoughts on Alien 3, you can go check out the recording for it. It was one of my very early episodes, and it was basically just 40 minutes of me ranting just how much I hate Alien 3. And it's actually one of my most viewed recordings. I'm pretty happy about that. That one was a lot of fun to record, but Alien Resurrection, I physically cannot bring myself to watch. Like, I mean, if for all you Alien fans out there, like, you know just how horrendous and awful that film looks. Like, I've seen shots from it. I physically cannot bring myself to watch it. Like, the only way that I can think of watching that is if I'm drunk. Like, I'm not kidding. Like, I physically can't bring myself to watch it. It's just like, I respect my mind and my well-being, you know, and I don't want to dirty my mind with that garbage movie. You know, I can't do it. So I don't think I'm ever going to be able to cover that. Like, you guys should have saw how hard it was for me to get through Alien 3. Like, I had to pause it like 3 different times over how frustrated I got. And I had to let my temper, you know, drop a little bit before continuing. Because that was just a ticking time bomb. Which is how, you know, ridiculous the story got. But anyway, we do have a new Alien film on the way as well later this year. And it's called Alien Romulus, and what's pretty cool is when I went to go see the original Alien at the AMC theater, there was this cool little like 12-minute interview that I got to watch between the director for this new Alien film, and he interviewed Ridley Scott, and I learned some pretty cool stuff about the movie, and it was kind of cool that the new one's coming out on the 45th anniversary of the original film that started this whole thing. So that interview is a nice little feature to watch. And the first trailer for this new Alien film is out, and it's looking extremely promising. Like, for any of you who have played the Isolation video game, like this, the trailer gives off heavy vibes of Alien Isolation. Like the way the set's built, the way the main character, like the main actress who's playing the main character in it, when she's running down the hall with the camera panning, following her, you know, like it looks like it was taken straight from the video game. Of her, like, running down the halls of a ship with the white walls and everything, the doors that slide open and all that stuff. Just, it looks identical. And that is a good sign to me, because the video game did an amazing job of recapturing that atmosphere of the original film, and it looks like this film is also capturing that magic. But I'm going to keep my expectations for this new film at bay, because I thought Alien Covenant looked really promising, and I was extremely disappointed. And, you know, this film, you know, it's carrying a lot of baggage, because we were originally supposed to get, you know, Alien 5 back in 2015, but it was, you know, canceled, and instead Ridley was given the green light to make his prequel trilogy, and it looks like that's never going to be finished because of all the hate that he got for Alien Covenant. So Alien 5 was literally canceled for nothing, and it left me extremely heartbroken, because if you look up any of the art images that was released showing, you know, Ripley and Hicks together, like, I am so heartbroken that we're never going to get to see that. It looks like it was going to be an epic finale, the thing that I've been wanting for so long, and it was going to erase Aliens 3 and 4 and give Ripley a proper ending, because 3 absolutely butchered it. So I'm very sad that 5 was canceled, and on top of that, it was canceled for no reason whatsoever. But anyway, I mean, I'm over it, but you can't help but think about it sometimes, because if there's one thing that really makes you sad, it's when, you know, it's when so much potential is wasted, you know. I really wish we could have gotten that movie. But now we're going to be moving on to the actual film itself, and the first thing that I always like to do is I want to give a quick little shout out and name off our main cast for this movie. Now, the main cast is... So the cast for this movie is set around a crew of 7 crew members on the ship called the Nostromo. So on the cast list, we have Sigourney Weaver, amazing actress. She will always be Ellen Ripley to me. She's an amazing actress, and I really enjoy her in the films that she does. And my other favorite performance from her was when she played Dana Barrett in Ghostbusters. And up next, we have the late great John Hurt, amazing actor. We have Harry Dean Stanton, Ian Holm, Tom Skerritt, Veronica Cartwright, Yaphet Kotto, and Balaji Badillo. That is the main cast for this film. And what's sad is 45 years later, almost all the cast members are gone. Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, and Veronica Cartwright are the last three living actors from this film. Over the years, everybody else has passed on, and it's really sad, but man, their legacy will always be remembered, and especially in this film. Like, everybody who acted in this movie knocked it out of the ballpark with their performances. Like, I can't imagine anybody else, playing these characters. Like, everybody in this brought their A game, and this movie is extraordinary, to say the least, and I can never say that enough. Like, for all you sci-fi fans out there, I don't think it gets any better, than this film. So the plot for this first film goes like this. There's a quick little summary for you. In deep space, the crew of the commercial starship Nostromo is awakened from their cryosleep capsules halfway through their journey home to investigate a distress call from an alien vessel. The terror begins when the crew encounters a nest of eggs inside the alien ship. An organism from inside the egg leaps out and attaches itself to one of the crew, causing him to fall into a coma. And that is the quick little main plot line for the original Alien. Very simple, but the story for this film works so well. And that plot summary is just scratching the surface on what the story is about. So the film opens up with the Nostromo vessel flying through space, and then we cut to the interior, getting some cool little camera shots of the hallways panning through the ship. We see the cockpit, the computers turn on, and the ship awakens the crew members. There's 7 of them sleeping in their sleeper pods that keeps them in hyper sleep until they get home. And it keeps them from aging because the long distances that they take years to get to. And you find out that later in the film, you find out that they were 10 months away from Earth. So they're awakened, they have breakfast and everything, and Captain Dallas goes to check what their mission is. And he tells the crew that they've encountered a distress call, and the company they work for want them to go check it out. So they head down to the planet, which is given the name LV-426, as we find out in the sequel. And they go down on the planet. Dallas and 2 other crew members go with him. They go check the vessel out, while everybody else is left on the Nostromo repairing the vessel because the ship was damaged pretty badly during the landing on the planet. And while Dallas and the others are exploring the ship, Kane, one of the crew members who goes with Dallas, finds a secret entrance inside the ship, and he rappels down into the basement of the alien vessel, or the lower level, and finds a whole field of giant eggs. And, this probably would have been the moment where I'm pretty sure everybody else would have been like, you know what, I don't like this, I'm out of here. But no, he literally goes down into the field and looks at all the eggs, touches them. He even sees that there's something moving inside of it, and he's just like, you know what, I want to keep expecting this, instead of, climbing out of the field and running back to the hook to repel out of the room. But anyway, he literally sticks his face inside the egg, and a creature jumps out of it and latches itself onto his face. So then Dallas and Lampert have to drag Kane back to the ship. So the rule is, while Dallas is off the ship, Ellen Ripley, our main protagonist, is in command of the ship. And when they get back, she asks what's wrong with Kane, and Dallas says there's something attached to his face. We need to get him inside. And Ellen's like, wait a minute, you know the protocol law. We can't let you guys in for 24 hours till we make sure that Kane is safe to be brought on board, because we can't risk anyone else, getting contaminated, because we don't know what this alien organism is or if it's dangerous. And, kind of to find out, not long after Dallas, Lambert, and Kane left the ship, Ellen Ripley had their had the distress call translated, and kind of find out it's not a distress call, it's more like a warning. And I'm just sitting here like, why didn't you guys do that first before you guys went out to check the vessel out? Shouldn't you have translated the message first to see what it was? But I don't know, that's just my common sense talking. Now, I do need to keep in mind that these guys, these crew members, are basically space truck drivers. They're not military, they're not strategists by any means. They're just workers carrying, supplies back to Earth. It's basically space, semi-truck stuff. But still, I'm just thinking, shouldn't you guys have had the message translated before going out? But again, I mean, no big deal. That's just me talking. But anyway, so Ripley's like, sorry guys, I can't let you in. And then Ash, their chief medical expert, big quotations there, opens the door and lets Dallas and the other two in, breaking the quarantine law. And they bring Kane into the medical room to try to figure out what's wrong with him. And this giant, we call it a face hugger, has latched onto his face, and he's not dead, but we don't know what it's doing to him. Then just later on in the film, it detaches itself from Kane's face, and it just dies. And everyone's like, okay, well, and then Kane wakes up not long after this, and he seems all fine and hunky-dory, so everybody's like, okay, maybe everything's fine now. So they have one last meal before they get back in the sleeper pods for their 10-month journey back to Earth. And then Kane starts having this, what seems to look like he's having a heart attack or something. And then this alien creature, and we call it a chest burster, literally breaks through his chest, pops out of him, and runs off. So now we have this unknown alien creature on board the ship. So Dallas splits the remaining crew members up to try to find this creature and get it off the ship. And then over the course of the film, they find out that in just a few hours, this tiny little alien grew into this giant, 7-foot creature. And the crew members get killed one by one while trying to figure out how to get it off the ship. And the movie literally ends with Ellen Ripley being the sole survivor of the Nostromo. And she blows up the entire ship and escapes on an escape pod. And she blows the alien into outer space. So that's really the plot summary of this movie. And it's a very simple story, but it works extremely well. You can really feel the stress and anxiety that the crew are going through over the course of the film. The alien barely gets any screen time throughout the film, and it does pretty much the same approach that Steven Spielberg did with the movie Jaws, where the rule is in a horror film, the less you show the villain or monster, whatever it is, the less you show it, the better the impact is. Because the less you see it, the more terrifying it is. And it works extremely well. This movie is over 2 hours long, and I think the alien only has, I would say 5 minutes of screen time, maybe. Well, maybe more 10 minutes, but still. And its scenes are really spread out, and it works. When he shows up, man, it is absolutely terrifying. And I'll never forget, I watched this movie for the very first time. I saw a scene from this when I was a kid, and it scarred me for life. I was just scrolling through TV one night, and I came on the AMC channel, and they were playing this movie, And I got to the part where Dallas was in the vent with his flamethrower, and he climbs down to the next level, and the alien pops out from the darkness and grabs him. And that scene scared me to death. Like, I had nightmares for days after that. It was bad, man. Like, I got scarred pretty bad. Like, I couldn't even sleep in my own bed because I was so terrified of that. Like, when I was a kid, I could not watch anything scary at all. It wasn't until I got in my late teens when I really started appreciating like how cool horror films really are. Like, horror films is now my favorite genre, but that only happened once I hit like 17 or something. Like, it took me a while to really appreciate horror movies, but man, that scene really got me. But and you really want the crew to succeed. Like, the film did an amazing job of establishing our main cast, and that they're just, simple, space truck drivers just living a normal life, excited to get home. And, things go wrong, and you want them to succeed and win the day. But over the course of the film, things just get worse and worse, and the survivors are pushed to their breaking point, and the stress and anxiety levels, just go off the charts. And there's so much, mystery about, like, why were we set to that distress call? Like, what is happening? Why is Ash not helping us so much? And why is this thing so smart? Why does he keep, ruining every plan we come up with? Nothing's working. Like, you can just feel the panic and the stress of the situation they're in. And it's so good. Just 2 hours of just anxiety, just hitting peak level. So now we're going to be getting into some facts about the filmmaking of this movie. So the director for this film is, of course, Ridley Scott, who went on to make, Blade Runner, The Martian, and, of course, Prometheus and Alien Covenant. And this is, of course, the very first film that started the Alien franchise. It was distributed by 20th Century Fox Studios. And the movie only had a budget of $11 million, and this film went on to gross $184.7 million at the box office. So it's, to say the least, this movie was a big box office hit, and it was a very big milestone in filmmaking. What I thought was pretty interesting, when I was watching that interview with Ridley Scott, when I went to go see Alien in the theater, he had mentioned that he took a lot of inspiration from Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, because he went to go see it in the theater, and that inspired him to want to write this, and he took a lot of ideas from that film, and you can kind of see that with like the ship scenes and stuff. And it's not a bad thing, like with like music making and filmmaking, like you take inspiration from other things, and that's not a bad thing at all. It's not like you're just stealing something, you're just taking a concept and doing your own spin on it. Like, that's not stealing, not necessarily. And I did some research about some of the cool things that happened during the filmmaking, and some things they did to capture like an emotion or something. So I listed down some pretty cool facts that even I didn't know about this movie. So the first one I want to talk about is that we all know the famous scene of when Kane goes down into that lower level of the alien ship, and there's like this blue force field that's covering the field of alien eggs. So, the blue laser lights that were used in the alien ship's egg chamber was borrowed from the famous rock band The Who. The band was testing out the lasers for their stage show in the soundstage next door. So, I just thought that was pretty cool how, like, it's like, you're just a very awesome rock and roll band just testing out stuff in a stage next door, and then you find out, that, you just helped contribute to making one of the greatest horror films ever made. Like, can you imagine being a rock and roll band and having that in the resume? It's like, oh, we also kind of helped, make one of the greatest films ever made. It's like not a bad thing to have on your rock and roll resume. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about was the chest bursting scene. Now, there is a misconception about the famous chest burster scene. It was not filmed in one take, despite the myth. The scene was filmed twice. On the first take, the chestburster was unable to cut through Kane's shirt, so the crew needed to reset and shoot it again. The failed attempt is visible in the finished film, since director Ridley Scott thought it made it look like the creature was struggling to push its way out, and made the scene more violent. And you can actually see there's a documentary called "See the Beast Within," where this is discussed in further detail. So according to designer Ron Cobb, the 2 takes of the scene were shot from multiple angles, and about 40 minutes of footage was available for screening. So apparently, the misconception was that it was all filmed in 1 take, but that is not the actual truth. And it's kind of crazy they mention that, because I know exactly what they're talking about. Because if you watch the finished product, when the alien pops out of Kane for the first time, you see blood splatter on his white shirt, but we don't see anything come out of him yet, so it looks like, the creature is struggling to push its way out, and it's more, realistic, just showing you just how violent this whole thing, really is. So I think it was a good thing that they kind of kept both takes and put them in together. I think it helped quite a bit, so I think that actually worked out pretty well for the finished movie. And there is another character in this film. It's not a human being. It's a cat named Jonesy. And the scene that I'm going to be talking about is when Brett is walking all by himself, breaking the horror rule that you never split up from the group. He's trying to find Jonesy the cat and bring him back to the bridge, because him and the others are trying to find the small little alien creature and capture it. And if they don't get Jonesy, he's going to keep showing up on the scanner, and they're going to get him mixed up with the alien creature. So Ripley was like, okay, Brett, go get Jonesy and take him up to the bridge. So he walks down these empty hallways into this empty hangar room trying to find the cat, and while he's doing this, he doesn't know it, but the alien is dangling from above him, and it descends down from the ceiling, and it kills Brett and drags him into the air vent. So this is the scene that we are talking about. So in this scene, Jonesy starts to walk out from behind a crate, but the cat sees the alien showing up from behind Brett, so it backs away very slowly and looks all scared. So to get the cat to react fearfully to the descending alien, a German Shepherd was placed in front of him with a screen between the two, so the cat wouldn't see it at first. The screen was then suddenly removed to make Jones stop advancing and start hissing. So they just used a dog to get the cat to look all angry and scared and start hissing. So that's a pretty cool way to get an animal to kind of act a little bit. So now we're going to be jumping back to the chestburster scene again for more additional information. So here's how it goes. So for the chestburster sequence, John Hurt stuck his head, shoulders, and arms through a hole in the mess table, linking up with a mechanical torso that was packed with compressed air to create the forceful exit of the alien. And lots of animal gut, which according to Sigourney Weaver caused the set to smell horrible. The rest of the cast were not told that real blood and guts were being used so as to provoke genuine reactions of shock and disgust. This worked so well that Yaphet Kotto went home in complete shock afterward, locking himself in a room and refusing to talk to his wife for several hours. For the alien's appearance on the shuttle, the set was built around Balaji Badillo, giving him an effective hiding place. However, extracting himself from the hiding place proved to be more difficult than anticipated. The alien's suit tore several times, and, in one instance, the whole tail came off. So, crazy enough, Ridley Scott's original cut was actually a lot bloodier, but because of the negative reactions of test audiences and the possibility of an X rating, scenes with violence and gore were cut down. Some outtakes that can be seen in the making of the documentaries show longer and bloodier versions of the chestburster scene and Brett's death scene. Scott specifically commented that the the huge amounts of blood in the former scene started to detract from the impact of the chest bursting itself. The final version of the movie used a lot less blood because they wanted to overwhelm rather than turn off the audience. And the reaction to the actors already sold it. So I can see both sides of this argument that maybe in this instance the film was in a situation where it was just maybe a little too bloody, because it seems that, when the actors' reactions to the scenes themselves already proved the point. Like, you don't need all this violence to really showcase how violent it is. Like, the actors' reaction should be good enough. So I get that. Part of me actually kind of wonders what that original take would have looked like. I wish we could see that original, take of the film, just so we could judge for ourselves. But again, I'm not exactly the biggest fan of big violent movies unless it serves a purpose. For me, it's I don't like violence to be there just for the sake of it. I want it to serve a purpose, so maybe in this instance, this extra violence wasn't really serving a purpose. They're you know what? We've already sold the point. We don't need this extra blood and gore. But still, I would like to see the original cut just to see what Ridley Scott's true intention was, or his full vision. A scene originally cut but reinserted for the director's cut shows Lambert slapping Ripley in retaliation for Ripley's refusal to let her, Dallas, and Kane back on the ship. According to Sir Ridley Scott and Victoria Cartwright, every time she went to slap Sigourney Weaver, Sigourney would kind of, shy away because she knew the slap was coming. And after about 3 or 4 takes of this, Scott finally told Cartwright not to hold back. Really hit her, he said. Thus, the very real shocked reactions of Weaver, Yaphet Kotto, and Harry Dean Stanton. This scene kind of reminds me of that moment from Jaws where the mom slaps Brody in the face in Jaws, after the funeral for her son, because she found out that the beaches were kept open after a girl was killed last week. And she was mad that Brody allowed the beaches to stay open, knowing full well that there was a shark out there. And I think it's kind of cool in the Jaws documentary, the actor who played Chief Brody said that, she ended up slapping him multiple times, during every take to get it right, and she was hitting him really, really hard, and he really had to act like he didn't know that slap was coming, and that's a hard thing to really do. It's yeah, let me just sit here and get slapped in the face, I'd be squinting for every take if it were me in Sigourney's position. So, they were trying to get the takes. She kept shying away. So I guess Scott's okay, just really hit her. Put all your force into it. And I did. And that scene is only in the director's cut. But so I think it's kind of cool that the actors' reactions to that slap are genuine, because they weren't expecting her to hit Ripley so hard. It'll hit Sigourney Weaver, super hard. So it's kind of funny how you capture something at the last minute, It's kind of like in Star Wars Empire Strikes Back, where Han's getting ready to go into the Carbonite chamber, and the original dialogue was, Leia's I love you, and then Han's I love you too. Then, George Lucas and everybody was I don't like this. This doesn't sound like Han Solo. So George told Harrison to think of something on the spot, and during a take, Harrison just came up with the idea of just saying, I know. So, and that was what was used in the finished film. So again, you never know what stuff will suddenly, appear at the last minute. Now, let's get into another cool little fact about the movie. So it was conceptual artist Ron Cobb who came up with the idea that the aliens should bleed acid. This came about when Dan O'Bannon ran into a wall with the screenplay and how to handle the last half of the movie. He needed a good reason for why the crew members didn't just shoot the thing and kill it, but not make it an indestructible monster that can't be killed. The acid blood was the idea that solved this problem. So again, another real cool idea. So, it's if that acid blood hadn't been there would have been a massive plot hole where it's okay, why don't these guys just shoot it, and kill it? And this fixed everything. Because, when you Like, I love that scene where we find out the creature bleeds acid really early on in the film, so Dallas and Ash are trying to get that face hugger off Kane back in the medical room, and they tried taking a limb off of it, and when they did that, acid poured from it and melted through the levels of the ship. And that's when they realized this thing has one hell of a, defense mechanism. You don't dare kill it. So that was such an amazing thing to come up with. There's a genuine reason, okay, we can't kill this thing, because if we do, it's going to, bleed acid and make a giant opening in our ship and kill us. So we had no choice but to vent it out into space. So that was a cool little thing, and that was such a cool idea that I'm so happy that it was, that it made its way into the movie. So the movie was originally scripted to end with Ripley escaping the Nostromo in her shuttle and the alien dying on board the Nostromo. Sir Ridley Scott thought this ending was way too simplistic. So he negotiated with the studio for an additional $500,000 budget and a week of filming to add a fourth act to the movie, showing how the alien had stowed away aboard the shuttle. Scott intentionally envisioned a very dark ending where Ripley tries to flush the alien out, but the creature climbs back into the shuttle. Ripley harpoons it, makes no difference. It runs towards her, slams through her masks, and rips her head off. It would then sit in her chair and start mimicking Captain Dallas's voice, saying, "I'm signing off. Hopefully the network will pick me up." 20th Century Fox wasn't too pleased. According to Scott, while pitching this idea over the phone, there was a long and uncomfortable silence. Within 14 hours, a studio executive arrived, threatening to fire him on the spot unless he changed the ending to one where the alien would die. Ridley Scott even admitted later on that allowing Ripley to live was a better ending. Now, I agree with that 100%. Now, for me, 9 out of 10, it drives me absolutely bonkers when studios interfere with the filmmaking of the movie that they're budgeting. I absolutely despise that. I've heard so many stories of movies being absolutely ruined because the studio would not stop interfering. Prime example, Sam Raimi, Spider-Man 3. He wanted his original story was just going to be Sandman as the main villain and Harry as a side plot. But the studio instead, Sony, decided to force Raimi to put Venom in the movie. And it absolutely ruined, what his original vision was going to be. So now he had to do massive rewrites and try to, balance out 3 different villains in one film. Now, Spider-Man 3 is still an amazing film, but part of you wants to see the original idea that Sam Raimi had and what the movie would have been like if the studio had just stayed out of it and let, Sam Raimi make a finished product. So, again, it drives me nuts when studios interfere, but in this instance, it was actually a very positive way, because if this movie had ended with everybody dying, then we wouldn't have gotten, Aliens, which is like one of the greatest sequels ever made, and it would have been a very depressing ending. I would not have liked that at all, and I don't think this movie would have worked so well if Ripley had died. Because, today, Ellen Ripley is regarded as one of the greatest female leads of all time. Like, as far as I'm concerned, she's like in first or second place for one of the greatest females ever written in the history of cinema. She is an amazing character, and I'll go into more detail about that later on, and why I believe she works so well even today. If the movie had ended with her dying, it would have ruined the entire film. I'm glad in this instance that studio interference actually helped the movie, because I think, any other time, it has not worked, that well. I hate studio interference, but in this instance, it actually worked out. So the Xenomorph has 4 minutes of screen time, and it doesn't make its first appearance until about an hour into the movie. So again, this film is a prime example of the less you show of your monster or main villain, the more terrifying it is. Like, the scenes that feature the creature are so perfect. Like, when we see it jump down from the ceiling for the first time, where we watch it kill Brett. Then the scene where it jumps out of the vent and grabs Dallas. And that ending battle between the creature and Ripley at the end of the movie. Or the death scene of Lambert and Parker. And that scene was absolutely horrible to watch. Very, very disturbing. But still, those are like the four main scenes that I think of, where the creature shows up. And you feel the threat throughout the entire time. Even when you don't see the creature, you can just feel like, it's like watching you from above. Like it's nearby, just waiting to, come up from behind you and kill you in one of the worst ways imaginable. So, the fact it only has 4 minutes of screen time, it just shows you, like, how well placed the scenes that feature the creature really are. It's paced beautifully. So, and here's another cool little fact for you. I actually learned this movie fact while watching the interview that was done before the movie started at the theater. So Scott said that the scene where we see Captain Dallas, Lambert, and Kane enter the alien ship, we have a scene where the three of them, walk through a doorway on the side of the ship, and during that scene, it was child actors wearing the spacesuits to make the ship look bigger. It was like how would you say, like an optical illusion kind of thing. It kind of reminds me of that scene in Titanic where we see the workers get the engines going to full speed, and they actually filmed that whole engine room sequence in a real ship that used engines similar to Titanic, but they were way smaller. So what they did was they used CG to shrink the humans. That way the engines looked way bigger than what they were. So they kind of did a similar concept here where they used child actors wearing the spacesuits to enhance the size of the alien vessel. And what's pretty funny is 2 of the 3 child actors two of them were Ridley Scott's own children. So I thought that was, pretty funny, to have your own children act in a movie you're making. That's pretty cool. So that pretty much wraps it up on some pretty interesting facts about the filmmaking of the film. I listed about 6 or 7 points there, but I didn't want to overdo it, but I just wanted to give you an idea of the creative ways that they did to capture some of the most epic moments in the movie. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about and shine some light on, if you will, is the director's cut of Alien. Now, if you buy the Blu-ray of Alien, you're given 2 versions of it. You have the original theater release from 1979, and then you have the 2001 director's cut that was released. Now, I didn't realize this until watching the theater cut in the theater. Both versions are special in their own way. Like, you have scenes that are in the theater cut, and then you have the director's cut that has scenes not in the theater cut. You know what I mean? Like, both versions have scenes that are not featured in the other one. Like, both versions have their own style. Now, Ridley Scott prefers the theater cut. I actually prefer the director's cut because I think the director's cut does a better job of showing you just how terrifying the xenomorph really is. So the alien creature is called a xenomorph. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but I just wanted to clarify. So some of the scenes that are in the director's cut, and the first scene that I want to talk about is a key scene that I can't believe they cut. But I mean, I can kind of understand why they cut this. It kind of maybe messes up the pacing a little bit. But in my opinion, this scene should have stayed in the theater cut. It really should have. Just showing you, like, how terrifying this creature is and what it does to victims. So Ripley climbs down a ladder to the very lower levels of the ship, and she finds a room where the alien is making a new nest, and she finds Brett and Dallas stuck to the wall, and they're being transformed into alien eggs. and Brett is already dead, but his head is turning into an egg. And then Ripley looks and sees Dallas still alive, and you can just hear him going, "Ripley, kill me." You know, like, he's like begging Ripley to put him out of his misery, so Ripley uses her flamethrower and burns him up and kills him. And we see that the creature is, you know, smearing this stuff, like, on the wall, making the walls look like how the alien ship looked. So it's the alien was starting to make a new hive in the lower levels of the Nostromo ship. So that scene shows you like what these creatures do to make those hives, and it shows you what happened to Brett and Dallas's bodies, because in the theater cut, you know, we just see Brett get taken away, and then we see Dallas just disappears, and you never know like what happened to him. So this scene for me kind of like fills in that plot hole of what happened to him. Because everybody else, we see them die in very bad and horrific ways. But those two, we never got a confirmation of what happened to them. So that scene, I think, is one of the most important things that came from the director's cut. Now, another thing that the director's cut has is additional scenes that were added of the crew talking. And you get to know a little bit more about them. And it may seem like a small thing, but for me, it makes you care about them that much more. Like, the more we learn about the characters, the better. Because the more you learn about them, the more you want them to live. So it's that much more heartbreaking when you see one of them get killed. Like, oh man, I really wanted that person to make it, you know? So I think the additional scenes of them talking and, you know, sharing experiences, getting to know character traits about them, that kind of stuff, I think it's very important. Now, one last thing I wanted to mention is that the director's cut, we see just a teensy-weensy little bit more of the alien creature. Like, for example, if we go back to Brett's death scene, we actually, before Brett is even killed, we get this nice little additional shot of the xenomorph just hanging from the chains, like, and he's, like, watching Brett walk by him like a predator, like, stalking its prey. And it was a nice little detail. Like, it gives you chills that this thing was up in the chains the whole time, watching Brett, waiting to make its move. And another scene that was added in the director's cut is the slapping scene that we mentioned earlier, where Lambert slaps Ripley super hard, and then Ripley starts yelling at Dallas and Ash for breaking the quarantine law. And that was very important to me because it just shows you like how incompetent Dallas is. Because one of my things about this movie that drives me absolutely crazy is just how horrible of a captain Dallas really is. Like, he breaks every rule and makes every wrong decision imaginable. And he gets everybody in this horrible situation, because if he had just listened to Ripley, none of this would ever have happened. Like, he should have had that transmission decoded first before even going out to the ship, right? And he should have stayed outside with Kane and Lambert following the quarantine protocol, and he should have waited until the ship was fully repaired before leaving the planet. And he should have not let Ash, make all the calls about what to do with the alien organism. He knows it's dangerous, yet he allows Ash to keep it on the ship so he can observe the facehugger instead of, getting rid of it because we don't know what it's going to do. Like, Ripley brings it up. Why are we keeping this facehugger creature on the ship? We don't even know what else it can do. It can bleed acid for just an example. But, Ash, convinces Dallas to let him keep it on board to study it and everything. So this is not helping matters by any means. So again, Dallas keeps making every wrong decision imaginable. So it's just kind of like a running joke, just how bad of a captain he is. But anyway, that scene of Ripley, chewing out Dallas, I think should have stayed in the cut, because it just shows you, that Dallas is a very incompetent captain, and it's his decisions that leads to the entire crew getting killed and Ripley having to figure out how to get the alien off the ship and everything. So it was a small little scene that I think adds a lot more character to Ripley, that she very strictly follows the rules, and she will not break them, for anyone. She knows the protocol, and she knows how to follow them. Like, she was a way better leader in this film than Dallas. Like, there's no comparison at all. Now, the theater cut, I was actually very surprised to find out that it has a lot of scenes that I don't remember seeing before, because I've gotten so used to watching the director's cut, but the theater version actually has a lot of additional scenes that I never saw before that also have, the main cast interacting with one another and, making jokes and stuff like that. And I think it is pretty cool, though, that both versions have their own unique style. Like, do you prefer more character development, or do you prefer more gore and more, in-depth analysis of the xenomorph? Like, which version do you like more? So I think it's pretty cool that you're given a choice of which take do you prefer. And I actually really enjoy that there isn't just that one take. You have two options to choose from, and both versions are extremely amazing in their own way. They tell the same story, but they lean slightly more towards a different kind of genre, if that makes sense. But I want to give a quick mention to some of the scenes that the theater cut has. So the theater cut has more tension-themed scenes with the main cast, and it just shows you how stressful things are getting for them. Like, the scenes are really drawn out, and we just see that, each character is, like, reaching their physical breaking point because they're losing crew members one by one, and nobody has any ideas on how to get the creature off the ship. And you have Lambert, for example, who is struggling throughout the last hour to keep it together. Well, you can just tell, like, she is on the brink of just losing her mind because she is so scared and helpless. And the tension just reaches, peak, volume once Dallas is killed, because now it's up to Ripley to think of a way to get the creature off the ship. And Lambert's in full panic mode. Ash is barely helping, and Parker will not listen to Ripley at all, so the drama just keeps getting worse. And we get a ton of scenes that really show that all hell is just breaking loose, and, like, it's like, what are we going to do? So you really feel that stress level with these additional scenes, just showing you how bad the tension is building up. So that was just a brief little mention of what the theater cut, features. So like I said, both versions are very unique, but, it's up to you to decide which version do you like better. So the next thing I wanted to talk about right quick is some of my favorite scenes in this movie. So I'm going to go through a quick little list that I made here, so we'll try to go through this pretty quickly. The opening breakfast scene after everybody wakes up, I really enjoyed that whole scene because you really get this vibe that these guys really like each other and that they've worked together before. You really get this feeling of, they're friends, they're a team, they're proud of what they're doing, they're having fun, they're very chill, relaxed, having a good time, excited to be on their trip back to Earth. So, like, right away, you really enjoy these people. You really like them, And I even like the scenes building up to them waking up in their sleeper pods. Like, I really enjoyed the camera panning across the rooms and hallways at the start of the film, showing you just, like, how amazingly detailed the set is. Like, I love the shots of the cockpit, seeing, like, the keyboards, the switches and everything. Like, I could be in that set for hours just studying every little detail. Like, the ship was its own little character. Like, it felt so alive, It did not feel bland or boring. Like, this felt like a real place. It was so cool to see. And I really enjoyed the scene where we see the creature for the first time. Like, it was done in the best way imaginable. Like, we just see the tail come down from the darkness, and it just climbs down from the ceiling, and it stands up. And it's like, Brett turns around, then we just see this giant 7-8 foot creature just hovering over him, just looking at him. And then we just see this thing come out of its mouth, and it grabs hold of Brett's face, and the creature just kills him instantly. Like, holy cow, man. Just, like, Brett never stood a chance. Like, man, talk about, introducing your threat. Like, it shows you right away, okay, this thing is extremely, extremely terrifying, big, and very dangerous. And Oh yeah, and one more scene that I forgot to mention is that in the director's cut, we actually see Ripley and Parker run into the room, and they watch as the alien jumps away and takes Brett with it into the vent, and then it starts raining blood on top of him. Then you just hear Parker yell out Brett's name. And that scene was not featured in the theater cut. In the theater version, the creature kills Brett, and then it just cuts to, Parker and Ripley back with the others, and then Parker's talking about this thing is just, it's big, and it took Brett, and it jumped into the vent, and we didn't see this happen, so it's kind of like, wait a minute, we didn't see that, like, when did that happen? So we see them, run in there to witness the creature take Brett away, so I thought that was a good thing to keep in the movie. Kind of fills the plot hole of like, wait a minute, when did you see the creature? But anyway, that whole scene of seeing the creature for the first time was a damn good introduction of showing you just how beautifully and terrifyingly, scary this creature is. And the whole the whole exploration of the alien ship was so well done too, because the music is turned down so you can slightly hear it in the background. But other than that, it just feels like it's dead silence throughout the whole sequence of Dallas, Lambert, and Kane walking down the hallway of the ship with their flashlights, because you're just like waiting for something to pop out because you don't know what they're going to find on this ship. They've never seen anything like it. The walls have this terrifying gray design of like what looks like hoses or something, and you're just like, what are they going to find on here, and the music is slowly getting more creepy the further they get into the ships. You're just like, what are they going to find? And they get into the giant room that has the giant alien creature sitting in a chair dead, and there's a giant hole in him looking like something broke out from inside of him. And we never find out like what happened to him or how the ship got there. We don't even know like where the xenomorphs came from or where the eggs came from. It's left to interpretation. Like even Aliens doesn't tell you like where the ship came from. And that I really enjoyed. And that was something that Alien Covenant and Prometheus destroyed. Was, that, oh yeah, by the way, the xenomorph eggs were created by an evil antidroid. Like, are you kidding me? Really? Like, the idea of not knowing where the xenomorphs came from works beautifully. It makes them that much more terrifying because we don't know where they came from. So, Prometheus and Alien Covenant completely destroyed that whole thing. But we're just scratching the surface on why I think those films don't work. But I'm not going to get into that. But the whole scene of our characters exploring the alien ship was done so well, and done with such amazing suspense of not knowing what they're going to find. So that was a quick little listing, just talking about some of my favorite moments in this movie. Now, the last thing that I want to get into right quick before we end this recording, I want to go into the character of Ellen Ripley, because I consider her to be a very important female lead. Like, she's up there with, Sarah Connor, Laurie Strode, Princess Leia, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, these are like some of the greatest female, leads ever. And Ellen Ripley is a very important female lead. Like, she is the prime example of a female lead written in the best way. Like, Ellen Ripley has strong leadership qualities upheld by her strength and resourcefulness, which were not seen in representations of women at this time. One of Ridley Scott's greatest accomplishments with Alien is the pacing. In the first half of the movie, he takes a long time to introduce the characters and their world. Dallas, Kane, and indeed Ripley all get to develop into well-rounded characters before the monster is even introduced. And even then, the facehugger's impregnation doesn't take effect until later that night. The audience has plenty of time to get to know Ripley, so her desperate fight for survival in the final act is much more impactful than the average scary movie that introduces its monster in the opening minutes. Because, like, you're rooting for her the entire time. Like, we care about this character so much that we want her to succeed. Like, we want her to survive. So, like, we're rooting for her the entire time. Like, Sigourney Weaver gives a fantastic performance as Ellen Ripley in Alien. Like, heck, she got an Oscar nomination in Aliens for a science fiction movie. Like, how many times does that happen? It's extremely rare because for some reason the Oscars have a bias against science fiction films. Like, apparently science fiction films are not allowed to win Oscars, and that's absolutely ridiculous. It's not just a great performance for a horror movie, it's a great performance by any metric. Every emotion is tangible, ratcheting up the tension of a fantastical crisis and keeping the audience on the edge of their seats. Now, this next part that I'm going to read to you here kind of goes into the Chosen One narrative that I've actually mentioned before. I talked about this very character or story trope with the 2017 Blade Runner 2049, so if you want to check out that recording, I go into this very phenomenon in that episode as well. So the problem with the Chosen One narrative is that it tells audiences that only a select few people are handpicked to be the heroes of the world. More relatable stories follow a nobody who is thrust into a dangerous situation by chance and uses it as an opportunity to prove their grit. I absolutely agree with that 100%. It's one of the main reasons why Blade Runner 2049 works so well is that our main character is not the chosen one, but he chose to be the hero of the film. Like, he chose to be. The decision he made for himself. It was not made for him. He was not picked by anyone or anything to be the chosen one. He made that decision all on his own. All on his own. That's what happens to Ellen Ripley in Alien. The whole Nostromo crew is introduced on equal footing with each other. Ripley is just an every woman who only becomes the main character by the fact that all the other characters get killed off over the course of the film. Ellen Ripley is regarded as one of the most significant female protagonists ever created, not just in movies, but in storytelling in general, and is credited with proving to Hollywood studios that women could lead action films. Damn right they can. Like, dude, abso-freaking-lutely women can be action movie stars. Heck yeah. Like, how many films have we seen? Like, dude, I love, here, pardon my wording here, but I love getting to see, women be leads in action films. Like, come on, who doesn't want to see a strong female lead kick some ass? You know what I mean? Like, I'll watch that any day, man. Like, Laurie Strode in the Halloween films? Heck yeah, she's a badass. Or Sarah Connor in the Terminator films? Like, the scene where she's shooting shotgun shells at the T-1000? Like, hell yeah, Sarah Connor, let's go! Like, absolutely females can be action lead stars. Absolutely. We've seen that time and time again. And Ellen Ripley is a prime example of that. It would be many years before female-led action movies would really take off, but they may not have taken off at all without Ripley's groundbreaking debut in Alien. Like, yeah, I totally agree with that 100%. I also do believe that Linda Hamilton's portrayal of Sarah Connor in the Terminator films actually did contribute with that as well. And I would also say Carrie Fisher's portrayal of Princess Leia in the main Star Wars trilogy, or I would also say Jamie Lee Curtis's portrayal of Laurie Strode in the Halloween films. I think all these, female actresses were like the founders of showing that females can be leads, in horror and action films as well. So the protagonist of a story is supposed to be someone the audience roots for. Audiences want Frodo to reach Mordor, Indiana Jones to get the Ark, and Atticus Finch to win the case. Since it's a given, some filmmakers don't bother to go out of their way to make the audience root for their hero. They just expect it. Ridley Scott and Sigourney Weaver didn't take that chance with Alien, making Ripley one of the first and fiercest final girls in horror film history. And I agree with that statement 100%. Like, Sigourney Weaver upped the ante in Aliens, just proving even more what an amazing actress she is. And Ellen Ripley is going to go down as her finest, like, acting performance. Like, I'm pretty sure, like, you know, decades down the road, like even now, like, she will always be remembered as Ellen Ripley. And she is an amazing actress. I can't say that enough times. So I think that's going to wrap it up for my covering of the original Alien from 1979, the film that started a very famous franchise. And I just want to say happy 45 years, you know, to this movie. 45 years later, this film still works extremely well, and it holds so much joy to be shared with others. So if you have not seen this movie yet, or Aliens, I highly recommend you go check out these first two films because they are extraordinarily well made, and both of them are just some of the best films, you know, ever made. As far as I can say, they are the best. So I hope that you really enjoyed this recording, and I hope you learned something new, and most importantly, I hope you enjoyed yourself. And I just want to say thank you for listening to this recording, and thank you for your amazing support in helping me make this dream a reality. So to you listening, you take care of yourself and keep living life to the fullest, and continue taking chances and opportunities that come your way, because you never know where they might lead you. So take care and have an awesome day. My name is Christian Taylor, and you are listening to the Tales of Music and Film.